Good morning to all. It is a pride for me to be inaugurating this week of artificial intelligence in our country, given the change of time that this means for both our nation and for humanity in its entirety. To understand the civilizational jump to which we are to go back, first to the origin of our species, hundreds of thousands of years ago, when we were nothing more than a simple animal with the ability to recognize patterns. This allowed us to develop technology and build on what is built. First was the conquest of fire, then the writing, then the domain of metal, subsequently the printing press, then electricity, and thus end up developing computing and the internet, which allows us to process and transport more and more bytes and information per second, to today to communicate, in real time, from one point to another from the planet, as if it were telepathy. Artificial intelligence is neither more nor less than the last step of this long human destination chain. A chain that, such as economic development, has the form of an exponential function. Today, both information processing, that is, the microprocessors present in each video plate, as well as its transfer, that is, the internet bandwidth, as well as computer tools increase their capacity exponentially. This exponentiality brings us closer to men, every day, at the height of the divine, in the eyes of our predecessors. If I told Julio Cesar that the human can fly, he would believe that we become gods. If I told my grandfather that today we are teaching him to think of a set of metals and stones, I would think the same. However, this route is never exempt from complexities. As expected with all great discovery, faces the fear of the status quo that never wants anything to change, or, worse still, that intends to get up to UPA from which ANOVA and is only dedicated to restrict and regulate activities. Not for nothing Galileo was chasing the Inquisition. The true novelty always appears first as heresy. But we cannot and should never allow fear to paralyze, because we are always the people who give use to the tools. A screwdriver can be used to build or as a homicidal weapon, but that is not why we are going to ban the screwdrivers. As Antonio Ichotado said, we will continue in the caverns if we had to conquer the fire. And there are two ethical alternatives: work rationally or act irrationally. And what is works rationally? Allow us to explore the new horizons that artificial intelligence opens. Without going any further, I owe her a lot, since thanks to the images that created my followers with artificial intelligence, our message of freedom reached more people, and thus we won the elections, with the most austere campaign in the history of mankind. Literally, we didn't have a handle, so everything depended on what our followers did on the networks. And those are simple image generators. Who knows the doors that such computing power can open us at the medicine, transport, engineering, energy development or health development level, or at the same daily level. Lift the hand who has not used ChatGPT in the last 30 days. On the other hand, I understand the risks that this technology can present in the wrong hands. I would not want to imagine a super powerful artificial intelligence in the hands of a communist dictator. Without going any further, look for the woke ideological bias, which has many of the most popular artificial intelligences. But that will never be enough reason to stop human progress and cut that outbreak of Rennet in such a primitive stage. Only a small soul can think like this, ceasing to aspire to the best for fear of the worst. If there is something that abounds in Argentina, they are large souls. To put it simple, we must not fear what the bad will do, because the bad ones will always be, and if you restrict, the bad ones will not be restricted, only they will restrict the good ones, with which all those good measures who try to restrict things, the only thing that ends up doing is favoring the evils. That is, for wanting to take care of the bad guys, they end up doing things that favor the evils, like any state intervention. Not for nothing, but, as I said, if there is something that abounds in Argentina are big souls. Not for nothing we have the best human resource on the planet, that which draws water from the stones and survived 100 years of fiscal aberrations. The same one that has the largest amount of unicorns per capita throughout Latin America, despite having had the slightest investment as a result of collectivism. And it is not the only thing that abounds in Argentina. Inhospitable land also abounds at low temperature throughout our Patagonia, which is a comparative advantage to mount artificial intelligence servers. And do you know what else servers need? Energy. Much. Something else that abounds in our Patagonia. You know that I am a man of faith, and my faith leads me to see the historical opportunity he has, our country, as a spearhead of the development of artificial intelligence. It does not seem a coincidence that this opportunity comes to us at the same time that I had to be president, because something else that these servers need are investments, and investments need stability in the long term. We are ordering the macro, we have put a lock to the fiscal balance, and we have swallowed the key. This will bring investments of all kinds because capital behaves like a living being and looks for the best conditions to develop. We understand that such, as in the 20th century, there was a career to build in greater welfare, which only meant poverty for citizens and well-being for politicians. The next race will be the fiscal and deregulatory career. This issue is not at all less. When I speak of the fiscal balance and that we have swallowed the key, basically, our zero deficit policy implies that the debt-product ratio is not increasing. That is, it means that Argentina became intertermly solvent. That made, when we assumed, the country's risk outside 3,000 and, today, is 750. This issue, which seems like an issue not less, if you made a computing of the price in stationary state equilibrium, would imply that in that balance prices would have to be enough to cover the costs, where costs are defined as the cost of operation and maintenance, the labor cost, the fiscal cost, and the cost of capital. By lowering the country risk, the low interest rate, today there are Argentine companies, First Line, which are borrowing at 5.75% in dollars. That is, truly low rates. And that means that these investments, which require both capital, that are so intensive capital, are viable in this macroeconomic environment of solvency and tax prudence. See, we are also facing an unprecedented fact, not only because we have made the greatest adjustment in the history of humanity, in a context of recession, which, in addition, if you clean the statistical drag, we will end neutral in terms of GDP. That is to say that we lower inflation without having cost, in terms of activity, which is why the case is being studied throughout the world, but also, in addition to an electoral year, of zero issuance, that is, we are not going to make monetary and fiscal policy to try to influence the electoral result, and that it is new. In addition, not only that, but we are spreading other countries. The United States is being inspired in our Ministry of Deregulation, and they will give it to Elon Musk, nothing more and nothing less than a pope of artificial intelligence. We want Argentina to be a country again where innovation is rewarded instead of punishing it. We want Argentina to be a country again where the risk to solve problems to others to be rewarded and not a reason for public drainage. We want Argentina to be a country with clear and identical economic rules for all. We want Argentina to re-access to tip technology at competitive prices. We want the citizens of this country to take advantage of their creative spirit to grow instead of trying to survive. We want to hug capitalism again so that capitalism hugs us again, and we will not stop until you achieve it. There is a very interesting book written by Gombrich, which is called Brief History of the World, which describes the history of human progress divided into 39 great eras from prehistory with the discovery of fire tools and language through the time of the heroes such as Alexander the Great, Rome and Caesar, the Middle Ages, the Renaissance and Da Vinci, the New World and democratic revolutions. It is evident that the world has progressed, depending on the action of some men with sufficient courage to push it towards a new border. Know that, today, we are here, are those men pushing human progress towards a new stage of development, on which, without a doubt, the history of heroes of tomorrow will be written. Because in the background we do not know what the future will be like, but all we know is that it will be much better. May God bless the Argentines, for the forces of heaven to accompany us, and long live freedom. Damn it, thank you so much.